Empress Elithra Voss's claws tightened on the arms of her throne as High Chancellor Varak intoned the final clause of the treaty scroll, his voice echoing through the vaulted Imperial Council chamber like a dirge. Thus, to seal the peace between the Sarkesh Imperium and the Terran Coalition, your Radiance must accept their designated envoy as consort and ceremonial bond, binding our houses until the stars reclaim their light. The assembled delegates, cloaked in iridescent silks, their multifaceted eyes gleaming with barely veiled calculation, held their breath, waiting for her verdict. Elithra's mandibles clicked once, a sharp denial that silenced the murmurs rippling from the shadowed galleries. She rose, her armored robes whispering against the obsidian floor, towering over the chamber at nearly 3 meters. The Imperium bends to no edict that dilutes its blood. This clause is noted, Chancellor, but its execution remains mine to command. Her gaze swept the council, pinning each faction leader in turn. The militarists with their scarred crests rigid, the priests murmuring invocations to the Void Mothers. They had maneuvered her into this fragile truce after the border skirmishes drained the fleet's reserves, but she would not yield her throne's sanctity to some soft-skinned primate from the outer rims. Varak bowed low, his crest flattening in deference, yet Elithra caught the flicker of triumph in his compound eyes. He thrived on these cracks in Imperial armor, whispering to the Highborn that peace demanded sacrifice. The Terran envoy arrives within the hour, Radiance, as per the scroll's timeline. Shall I prepare the prostration rites? No, she said flatly, her voice a blade unsheathed. Summon the escort. I will receive him here, under my gaze alone. The chamber doors groaned open an hour later, admitting a phalanx of palace guards in gleaming carapace plate, their energy lances humming at the ready. Flanked by the Terran envoy, a squat, furred diplomat from some neutral brokerage world, the human stepped forward. Lieutenant Jonah Hale, the scroll named him, clad in ceremonial garb that mocked Sarkesh tradition, a high-collared tunic of Terran silk embroidered with coalition sigils, trousers tucked into polished boots, and a sash bearing rank insignias that meant nothing here. No armor, no weapons visible, yet he moved with the coiled assurance of one who had faced worse than courtly theater. The guards halted at the throne dais' base, expecting the ritual drop to knees and forehead. Jonah stopped with them, chin level, eyes meeting Ilfra's without a flinch. The envoy cleared his throat nervously. Lieutenant Hale presents himself as the coalition's bond candidate. Your Radiance, sworn to the treaty's terms. Elithra leaned forward, her crest flaring slightly, a warning flare of imperial disdain. Humans were endurance freaks, she'd read in the briefings, able to toil through voids where Sarkesh warriors flagged, but this, refusing prostration before the Void Mother's anointed. You stand unbowed, Lieutenant. Is Terran custom so arrogant, or do you spurn our house? Jonah's expression remained steady, a faint smile touching his lips. Not mockery, but quiet resolve. Customs differ, Empress. My oath is to the coalition and the peace we forge. Prostration implies submission I can't give without betraying that. But I'm here to serve the treaty. As equals in alliance. Equals. The word hung like poison gas. Murmurs erupted from the delegates now filtering back into the chamber, Varak's faction exchanging glances. Elithra silenced them with a raised claw. This human's defiance was no mere ignorance. His record glimpsed in transit dispatches, spoke of special operations, raids on pirate nexuses, negotiations with fractious colonies. Ceremonial spouse, a soldier veiled as diplomat. She would not dismiss him as chattel. Captain Thrask, she commanded, her voice carrying the weight of edict. Conduct an immediate audit, full background, service history, physiological scans. I want every skirmish, every alliance he's forged dissected before dusk. If he is to shadow my throne, he will be known. Thrask, her grizzled security chief, snapped his crest in acknowledgement and gestured sharply. 2 guards advanced, scanner orbs whirring to life. Jonah submitted without protest, extending an arm as the devices hummed over his form, pulling data from implants and flesh alike. Elithra watched, noting how he multitasked, scanning the chamber's sightlines, the delegates' postures, even her own guard's stances, without a hint of strain. Humans juggled threats like breathing, the briefings claimed. She filed it away, curiosity edging out contempt. The scans complete, Thrask relayed the preliminary, impeccable radiance. 47 operations, 0 surrenders. Negotiated truces with 3 rogue species. No anomalies beyond baseline human tolerances. Endurance peaks at triple our norms. Adaptability and xenolinguistics off the charts. Elithra's mandibles parted in a rare, calculating smile. Dismissal would fuel court whispers of weakness. Better to test him. Turn this farce into leverage. Very well, Lieutenant. Prove your service beyond words. The palace garrison simmers with unrest, border echoes, supply shortfalls. You have supervised access to the readiness logs, under Thrask's eye. Assess it, impress me, or depart as you arrived. Unbowed, but irrelevant. Jonah inclined his head, not a bow, but respect. I'd be honored, Empress. Lead on, Captain. As they departed for the garrison vaults, Elithra turned to the council, but the doors burst open again before she could speak. A delegation of highborns stormed the dais, Lord Cresser at their fore, his robes ablaze with ancestral sigils, flanked by priestesses clutching void orbs. This interspecies abomination profanes the bloodline. Petition the delay of formalization until the augurs divine clearer skies. Cresar's crest quivered with feigned piety, but Elithra scented the politics beneath. His faction coveted the throne's next vacancy, and a human consort was the perfect fracture. Varak hovered at the edges, silent but attentive, ready to exploit the schism. She descended the dais in 3 strides, her presence compressing the air. You presume to dictate my oaths, Lord Cresar? The treaty binds us all, or the coalition's fleets return. Your estates on the frontier first to burn. Her voice cracked with restrained fury, formality splintering like brittle chitin. The priestesses recoiled, orbs dimming. Cresar pressed, undeterred. The Void Mothers demand purity. Delay the public oath radiance. Let the human prove worth beyond scans. Elithra paused, mandibles grinding. Delay bought time. Audits deepened. Jonah tested. Factions exposed. And if the human faltered, leverage. The petition is granted. Public formalization postpones until garrison readiness satisfies me. Dismissed. The delegates withdrew, grumbling, but Varak lingered, his eyes gleaming. Wise radiance, caution preserves the throne. She ignored him, striding to the observation balcony overlooking the garrison yards. Below, Jonah moved among the logs with Thrask, his fingers flying across holographic displays, cross-referencing supply chains with patrol rotas. Thrask's crest twitched in surprise as Jonah murmured something. Pattern in the shortfalls? A novel reroute? The captain nodded, grudging respect etching his features. Elithra's crest eased fractionally. This human was no ornament. He adapted to their systems mid-stride, spotting inefficiencies her analysts had glossed rote. Not arrogance, competence, worn like plain armor. For the first time, the Alliance felt less like chains and more like a blade she might wield. Yet as shadows lengthened, a runner arrived, panting. Radiance external dispatch. Coalition frigate requests parley. They insist on oath acceleration. Her claws flexed. The game deepened. She would not be told whom to receive, but perhaps this Jonah Hale was worth receiving after all. Senior Counselor Breath's voice sliced through the vaulted chamber like a vibro-keen, his frilled crest flaring crimson with barely contained outrage. Empress Elithra, this Terran alliance mocks the sanctity of our bloodline, introducing alien seed into the succession risks diluting the Voss purity that has held the Imperium for millennia. I propose Lord Varak, your cousin's proven heir, pure Sarkesh, battle-forged and loyal. Let the humans play their envoy games elsewhere. Elithra's throne loomed at the chamber's apex, its obsidian facets catching the holographic glow of orbiting defense grids. She regarded Breath with unyielding calm, her iridescent scales shimmering under the recessed lights, claws curled precisely around the armrests. The council murmured, factions shifting like sand, Breath's traditionalists clustering to his left, the reformists exchanging guarded glances. Her mind raced through the fractures. Breath's proposal wasn't mere conservatism, it was a bid to install his puppet, fracturing the court further as the outer rims chafed under blockade strains. She would not yield ground. "Denied, Counselor," she intoned, her voice a resonant command that silenced the rustle of robes. "The Terran Pact secures our flanks against the Krell Dominion. Varak serves admirably in the vanguard. He remains there." Her gaze swept the assembly, pinning dissenters. We adapt, or we fracture. Breath bowed stiffly, but his crest remained flared, a promise of future barbs. As the session recessed, Elithra signaled her adjutant, "Escort Lieutenant Jonah Hale to the comms arrays. I would see this human's vaunted precision for myself." Jonah Hale moved through the palace's labyrinthine conduits with the unhurried focus of a predator in familiar territory, his Terran uniform, a simple gray tunic over reinforced trousers, marking him alien amid the gilded arches and pulsing biolumens. Elithra observed from an elevated gallery, her enhanced optics zooming on his form. Compact, unadorned musculature, no crest or scales, just that peculiar mammalian warmth radiating faintly through thermals. He carried no ostentatious tools, only a compact scanner clipped to his belt. He knelt before the primary array, a nexus of crystalline relays humming with interstellar data streams. His fingers danced over access panels, eyes narrowing as readouts scrolled. Elithra's tech adepts had dismissed prior glitches as atmospheric interference. Jonah traced patterns they overlooked, subtle phase drifts correlating to solar flares, compounding into latency spikes that could garble fleet orders or diplomatic bursts. "Here," he murmured to the hovering drone recorder, voice steady accented by that soft Terran lilt. "Latent calibration fault in the quantum buffers. It's cascading. Every 10th relay desyncs by 0.3 microseconds, amplifying over distance. Fix is a phased recalibration protocol. Reroute primaries through secondaries for 48 hours while injecting micro-corrections." He uploaded the schematic from his scanner, a elegant lattice of code that wove human improvisation into Sarkache rigidity. No fanfare, just results. Elithra's breath caught. A rare flicker. Her adepts prided themselves on flawless arrays. This human had unraveled it in minutes, spotting connections across stellar mechanics and signal theory that eluded them. She activated her comm. "Implement Lieutenant Hale's protocol, immediately. Monitor for efficacy." The lead adept balked over the link. "Empress, unverified foreign code, verified by results," she cut in, tone brooking no fracture. "Execute." As the arrays realigned with a harmonious thrum, skepticism curdled into motion. Elithra dispatched queries to Terran archives, discrete probes into Jonah Hale's record, special operations on fringe worlds, negotiation of ceasefires under fire, technical improvisations in sieges. Not boasts but quiet competencies stacking like unyielding blocks. Her claws flexed involuntarily. Worth receiving, indeed. The council reconvened at dusk, hologrids flickering with updated fleet postures. Elithra rose, producing a slender liaison badge from her sash, gold-etched with imperial sigils, granting archive access and chamber voice. Lieutenant Jonah Hale stepped forward. He approached without flourish, saluting crisply. Breath's crest spiked anew. "Empress, a badge? To an unblooded outsider? This invites chaos. The traditionalists will riot." "Chaos invites itself," Elithra replied, affixing the badge to his tunic herself, her claw tips brushing fabric with deliberate precision. The contact was electric, his skin warm, pulse steady beneath. "You will serve as court liaison, tempering unrest with Terran insight. Observe, advise, prove your place." Her eyes locked on his, a test unspoken. Rise or falter. Jonah inclined his head, voice even. "Honored, Empress. I'll coordinate with your staff, no disruptions." Murmurs rippled, reformists nodded approval, traditionalists seethed. Breath stalked out, but the badge gleamed. A public tether, binding him to her orbit. Elithra felt the court's gravity shift. Her strength reaffirmed not by rejection, but calculated inclusion. Then the grids flared crimson. A Krell battlecruiser flanked by corvettes materialized on the border feeds. Engines hot, weapons cold, but posture screaming provocation. Broadcast lanced through. Sarkache aggressors encroach, demonstrate restraint, or respond in kind. The chamber tensed, crests flaring in unison. Breath whirled back, triumphant. "See? The pact invites predators." Elithra's mind sharpened to a blade. Full retaliation risked escalation, inaction, weakness. Fleet command. Hold posture. Shields optimal, vectors locked but dormant. She turned to Jonah, voice pitched for the assembly. Her first public invocation. "Lieutenant Hale, your counsel on de-escalation. The Krell thrive on overreach. How do Terrans thread such needles?" He studied the hollow, multitasking feeds with effortless poise, cross-referencing Krell formation quirks against Terran siege logs, patterns leaping in his gaze. No panic, just that human resilience, optimism etched in squared shoulders. They're probing, Empress. Mirror their ambiguity. Dispatch a single scout wing on parallel course. Non-aggressive scan protocols. Broadcast shared sensor data. Invite joint vigilance against pirates. It de-escalates without retreat. Forces their hand publicly. Simple. Audacious. Elithra's adepts blinked mandibles in confusion. Such feints demanded split-second adaptability they wrote drilled away. She signaled execution, watching the scout signatures launch, sleek daggers arcing into the void. Minutes stretched, then Krell response. Grudging acknowledgement, signatures peeling back. The chamber exhaled. Breath's crest wilted. A reformist murmured, impossible precision. Elithra met Jonah's eyes across the grids, a spark of connection amid the intrigue contempt yielding to Alliance's first forge. Her claws eased, the game deepened, but now with a worthy player. She would wield him and in wielding, perhaps learn his unassuming steel. As the session dissolved, she lingered, voice low for his ear alone. Well played, Lieutenant. The badge suits you. Tomorrow, we delve your protocols further. He nodded, humble warmth in his return gaze. At your service, Empress. Together, we hold. Propriety cracked just a fracture, strength intact, partnership kindled. High Arbiter Cress's crest flared crimson as he thrust the etched obsidian tablet forward, his multifaceted eyes locking onto Elithra's throne. Empress Elithra Voss, by the ancient writs of the Third Concord, the dissident bloc, backed by houses Varak and Thalor, files formal motion to expel the Terran consort from the palace precinct. His presence undermines the sacred bloodlines and invites chaos upon the Imperium. Elithra's scaled fingers tightened on the armrests of her throne, the faint iridescent shimmer of her hide betraying no tremor. The council chamber thrummed with restrained agitation, crests flickering in shades of amber and violet, tails coiling beneath robes. She had anticipated this fracture, the inevitable pushback from those who viewed Jonah Hale as little more than a barbaric trophy in a peace forged from desperation. Yet the crack in her propriety from last night's shadowed exchange lingered, a quiet warmth she refused to let fracture her command. The motion is noted, Arbiter Cress. To dispel these shadows on the Alliance, I decree a public review of its terms at dawn's drill in the Obsidian Fields. Let competence, not whispers, speak. Murmurs rippled like wind through dry scales, but none dared counter her. Jonah stood at the chamber's edge, his human frame unyielding in the stiff Terran envoy uniform, face a mask of professional calm. She caught his eye for the barest instant, steady, unreadable, and turned away, propriety resealing itself. Dawn broke over the Obsidian Fields with a merciless glare, the black volcanic sands crunching under armored boots as Elithra's elite phalanx assembled. Hollow barriers shimmered to life, projecting the event across every court feed in the capital. Thousands watched from hovering barges in public plazas. The review was no mere formality, but a spectacle where Jonah's worth would be tested, or shattered. Elithra observed from the command dais, her captains flanking her, their crests held high in skeptical poise. Watch closely, she commanded softly. The Terrans claim versatility. Prove it hollow, and the motion passes. Jonah took position at the unit's fore, a mixed squad of 10, 6 Sarkesh veterans rigid in formation, 3 human auxiliaries from the Coalition's token garrison, and himself. The simulated ambush initiated with a thunderous barrage, drone swarms erupting from concealed pits, mimicking rebel raiders with plasma volleys and grav mines. Standard doctrine demanded a phalanx shield wall, lock shields, advance in lockstep, suppress with massed fire. But Jonah didn't halt. Flank left, curve right, auxiliaries bait the drones low. His voice cut clear, no bellow, just precise command. The Sarkesh hesitated a beat, their training screamed orthodoxy, then pivoted as he darted ahead, rolling beneath a grav mine burst. He multitasked seamlessly, signaling patterns with hand flares while scanning the hollow terrain, spotting a drift in the drone swarm's patrol vectors that no rote sim had flagged. Pattern shift. It's looping on thermal ghosts. Humans, jam frequencies, Sarkesh faint plasma overhead. The squad adapted, humans enduring the sand scour winds without flinch. juggling jammer packs and rifles while the Sarkesh spears thrust in unpracticed arcs. Jonah led from the chaos's heart, improvising a pincer. He hurled a field explosive pack into a drone cluster, creativity blooming from scavenged gear, detonating it mid-air to cascade the swarm. One veteran grunted as shrapnel grazed his flank. Simulated, but stinging, yet Jonah was there, hauling him up with a grip that spoke of endless drills, no fatigue in his stance. They surged the objective, a mock command nexus, secured in under 8 minutes. Drones slagged, silence gripped the fields, then a low rumble of crests unfurling in awe. Captain Vera, Elithra's drillmaster, leaned close, her voice a hiss of disbelief. Impossible. He, connect of the swarm's echo from the wind sims? Our algorithms missed it. Elithra felt her own crest twitch involuntarily, the human's humility in crisis etching deeper, a man who treated galaxy-shaking innovation as mere work. Back in the sealed council vault that afternoon, Elithra's voice rang with newfound steel. Summon the Terran's service records, every commendation, every campaign log. Contempt yields to evidence. Scribes scurried, projecting hollows. Jonah Hale, lieutenant in a dozen border skirmishes, special ops infiltrations where he'd negotiated truces mid-firefight, endured 3-day sieges without rotation, bonded fractured squads across species lines. These feats, they read like myth. How does flesh endure such by will, not writ? Elithra replied, her gaze flicking to Jonah, who stood silent, eyes downcast as if reviewing his own logs were trivial. The shift settled, no longer a curiosity, but a subject of formal inquiry. Propriety held, but the fracture widened, a thread of respect weaving through. By evening, in the dim glow of her strategy sanctum, Elithra summoned him alone. Her captains arrived cloaked in discretion. Vera, grim tactician haunted by a lost legion. Korath, the impulsive fleet admiral with a gambler's flaw. Lieutenant Hale, she said, mandibles parting in measured invitation. Brief my command on these adaptations. Your voice elevates here. Jonah nodded once, unassuming, and launched into it. No grandstanding, just crisp diagrams flickering to life. He wove Terran multitasking into Sarkesh spearheads, pattern recognition linking orbital scans to ground ambushes, emotional reads diffusing allied tensions mid-battle. The captains leaned in, crests pulsing violet with fascination. Vera probed. You read intent from a glance? Our empaths train cycles for that. Jonah shrugged humbly. Squad survival. You learn or you don't. Korath laughed, a gravelly bark, rare humor bridging the void. Elithra watched, strength unyielding, yet a personal tether forming. His competence mirrored her own burdens, mutual now. Then the palace shuddered. Alarms wailed as feeds erupted. An explosion in the fringe markets, plasma blooms tied to anti-alliance agitators. House Thaller's shadows, no doubt. Shrapnel rained on civilian throngs. Agitator cells swarmed testing the peace. Elithra rose like a storm. Lockdown protocols. Seal districts. Deploy Cetra drones. Cordon the blast radius. Protect the order. Her measures cascaded. Efficient, ironclad captains scattering to execute. Jonah moved instinctively to her side, scanning threat holos with that same unflagging focus. Council protests flared via comms as the lockdown gripped the capital. Empress, this elevates the Terran unduly? Cress's voice crackled. Elithra overrode them, her tone brooking no dissent. By my prerogative as sovereign, I appoint Lieutenant Hale as temporary public escort for all engagements. His proven tactics guard the alliance, dissent noted. Obedience required. The line went silent. Jonah met her eyes then, a flicker of shared understanding. No words, just the quiet kindling of partnership. Court unrest simmered, contained for now, as the first agitator cells crumbled under joint patrols. Competence recognized, status upgraded. The fracture in propriety spread, strength intact, reshaping the game. High Priestess Vespera's voice sliced through the vaulted chamber like a ritual blade, her frilled throat pulsing with fervent indigo. By the Codex of Eternal Bloodlines, Article 17, ratified in the Shadow Wars, interspecies unions profane the divine helix of Sarkesh sovereignty. I petition the Succession Tribunal to annul this provisional alliance before it festers into heresy. Elithra's crest flared subtly beneath her coronet, the weight of 1,000 eyes pressing against her from the tiered galleries. She sat enthroned at the tribunal's apex, Jonah Hale a measured presence at her right, silent alert, his Terran frame clad in the provisional consort's sash that still chafed her court's propriety. The air hummed with the tribunal's anticipatory drone, holographic codices flickering like captive stars above the obsidian podium. Vespera, that sanctimonious relic with her web of priestly allies, had timed this perfectly. The fragile peace with the Terran coalition teetered, an annulment would shatter it. From her vantage, Elithra scanned the assembly, counselors shifting in their harnesses, their bioluminescent hides betraying flickers of ambition. Jonah's gaze flicked to her, a subtle nod acknowledging the trap. Competence recognized indeed. Their joint patrols had already cracked the agitator cells, but this was politics' deeper venom. The tribunal proctor, a stooped Vexari with quivering antennae, intoned, petition logged. Alliance principals present counter-arguments within the recess hour. As the chamber stirred toward recess, Jonah leaned in, his voice a low anchor amid the rustle of robes. Empress, if I may examine the codex projections? His fingers danced over the interface slab beside her throne, pulling up the archaic strata, layers of Sarkesh legales that even her scholars navigated with ritual. Elithra granted a fractional incline of her head, propriety cracking just enough to allow it. Humans, she mused, with their blunt adaptability. He'd already absorbed patrol protocols faster than her lieutenants. Now, as counselors filed out, Jonah's eyes narrowed on the holographic spirals, tracing glyphs that predated her dynasty. Minutes bled, his brow furrowed, not in frustration but focus, cross-referencing patterns her jurists memorized by rote. Here, he murmured, isolating a filament of text amid the dense weave. Subarticle 94, procedural pacts may persist pending adjudication if ratified by imperial decree during active tribunal. It's a loophole, framed for wartime exigencies but applicable. We invoke it now, and the annulment stalls. Her scholars would have required days. Jonah had unraveled it in the recess's shadow. Elithra's pulse quickened, not awe, but the grounded thrill of an unforeseen edge. Proctor, she projected, voice carrying like tempered steel. Reconvene, the human consort identifies. A sharp crack split the air. From the upper gallery a cloaked figure lunged, beam rifle materializing in a blur of suppressed motion. The shot lanced toward her throne, sapphire plasma scorching the armrest as Elithra twisted. Chaos erupted, counselors shrieking, harnesses clanging. But Jonah was already moving. He vaulted the throne's barrier with predatory economy, boots thudding against the tiered steps. The sniper pivoted for a second shot, but Jonah closed the gap in 3 strides, his body a coiled spring of Terran resilience. No dramatic flourish, just precise, brutal efficiency. He seized the assassin's firing limb, twisting it back with a crack of bone, then drove an elbow into the throat frill, silencing the gurgle. The rifle clattered free. Jonah pinned the figure face down, knee grinding into the spasming spine, preventing even a twitch toward concealed blades. Guards swarmed, but Jonah held firm, his breath steady, eyes scanning for accomplices. The chamber fell to stunned hush, Vespera's frills blanching to pallid gray. Elithra rose, unruffled, her presence reasserting dominion. Cancel the recess. This outrage invokes my imperial prerogative. Emergency adjudication convenes under my sole authority. Proctor. Log it. The Vexari proctor stammered, antennae wilting. Empress. Protocol demands. Protocol bends to survival, she cut in, voice laced with the fracture of raw command. The alliance endures. The shooter will yield names. Jonah met her gaze across the chamber, hauling the limp assassin to the guards with a nod that spoke volumes. No triumph, just duty fulfilled. Her court's eyes widened at the human's feet, subduing a gallery sniper barehanded, where her elite would have relied on fields or drones. Whispers rippled. Terran endurance, they murmured, holding strain without falter. With the chamber secured, Elithra gestured Jonah back to her side. Lieutenant Hale, by this act you are elevated to ceremonial shield status. Bear the obsidian vambrace. Limited honors, but under my protection. A chamberlain approached, fastening the etched band to his arm amid a susurrus of shock. Vespera's mandibles clicked in outrage, but Elithra pressed on, signaling confidence where doubt festered. Guards, she commanded, arrest the High Priestess's acolyte in the East Gallery. His shot originated there, and the two counselors who delayed the alarm. Gasps echoed. Advisor Krell, her longtime flank, leaned in urgently. Empress, this risks the priesthood's block. Fallout could splinter the outer provinces. Elithra's crest hardened, meeting his gaze with unyielding poise. Unchecked conspiracy ensures fracture. Investigate thoroughly. Cross-reference patrol logs with tribunal access. Trace the rifle's provenance. The Alliance, and my throne, demand it. Krell subsided, his hide dimming in acquiescence. Jonah, now vambraced, positioned subtly at her flank, his presence a quiet bulwark. Vespera rose, frills quivering. This is imperial overreach. The Codex invokes my decree, Elithra interjected, her tone regal yet laced with the personal edge of their shared glance earlier, that kindling partnership. The loophole Hale deciphered permits it. Tribunal dismissed. Justice proceeds. As guards dragged the conspirators forth, Elithra felt the court's tide shift. Vespera's petition crumbled, the sniper's failure a stark omen. Jonah's feats, deciphering the ancient weave, quelling the shot with raw, uncomplaining grit, wove human worth into her Imperium's fabric. Not superiority, but synergy. His pattern sight piercing rote blindness, his resilience bridging her guard's precision. In the adjudication's glow, whispers turned to nods. Krell murmured to a peer, the Terran. He reads our laws like battle maps. Vespera, under guard's eye, glared but faltered, her certainty cracked. Elithra exhaled, strength intact amid the proprieties' fissures. The game reshaped, alliance fortified, conspirators ensnared, and at her side, a shield not of ceremony alone. Partnership kindled brighter, court unrest yielding to reluctant awe. Yet shadows lingered, deeper factions stirred, demanding more. Elithra's claws tightened on the armrest of her throne as the holographic edict from the neighboring Vixari coalition flickered into view, its droning envoy's voice slicing through the council's murmur. Effective immediately, all trade conduits to the Sarkesh Imperium are severed. Your unnatural alliance with the Terran upstart justifies this measure to protect galactic stability. Gasps rippled among the robed advisors, but Elithra's gaze flicked to her cousin, Lord Kael Voss, whose frilled crest flared triumphantly from the shadowed dais. My Empress, Kael intoned, rising with scripted gravitas, his voice a silken blade. The Vexari sanctions confirm the peril. This human consort poisons our bloodline and invites ruin. I proclaim a regency bid under ancient law, emergency succession to safeguard the Imperium until the alliance is dissolved. Cheers erupted from his faction, a calculated wave of indigo-robed loyalists, while the chamber's air thickened with the acrid scent of agitated pheromones. Elithra rose, her iridescent scales catching the light like fractured obsidian, silencing the din. Strength coiled in her core. She would not fracture here. Lord Kael, your ambition outpaces wisdom. The alliance holds by my decree. Dismiss this farce. Yet as she spoke, couriers burst through the vaulted doors, their carapaces slick with haste. Empress grain stores breached at the eastern silos. Sabotage. Famine looms within cycles if unchecked. The council's outrage swelled, punitive edicts flying, scorched border reprisals, purges of suspected houses. Elithra's mind raced. Patterns aligning, Kael's bid timed to the Vexari move, saboteurs bearing anti-alliance sigils. Shadows deepened, demanding more than retaliation. She turned to the human at her side. Jonah Hale, his posture unyielding amid the alien storm, eyes scanning the holograms with that unnerving calm. Lieutenant Hale, she said, voice low but carrying. Your diplomats failed at the borders. Lead a sortie to the governors there. Stall their mobilization. Secure neutrality, by whatever means your kind employs. Jonah nodded once, no flourish. His Terran uniform stark against the chamber's opulence. Understood, Empress. I'll need shuttle access in my select unit. 5 operatives, light arms. The council hissed. Humans in command? But Elithra overrode them. Granted. Integrate your tactics into our operations. Prove the alliance's worth. Jonah moved like a shadow uncoiling, his team assembling in the shuttle bay with efficient grace. From the viewport, Elithra watched him depart, the craft vanishing into the nebula-streaked void. Reports trickled back within hours, each more improbable than the last. Governor Thal's stronghold first, the reptilian lord, spines rigid with mobilization orders, faced Jonah across a negotiation orb. Thal's aides documented every human blink, expecting frailty, but Jonah juggled 3 data streams: Vexari-sanctioned manifests, local troop dispositions, historical trade pacts, while reading Thal's flickering vents, the subtle heat blooms of doubt. "Governor," Jonah said evenly, "no Terran bluster. Your silos empty faster under sanctions than ours. Mobilize, and Vexari starves you first. Neutrality buys you my coalition's black market relays. Grain from fringe worlds, no strings." Thal's spines wilted. A human reading subtext his own kind ignored, linking economic threads across domains. Neutrality pledged, documented in awestruck logs. Next, Governor Lirazeri, avian fury at first, wings half unfurled. Jonah multitasked mid-flight repairs on his shuttle, enduring 0 strain without a flicker, while proposing a novel pact, joint patrols disguised as trade escorts, stalling Vexari probes. Your flyers spot incursions, my ground teams map them. Shared data, shared survival. Lyra's beak parted in shock. Humans adapted mid-crisis, improvising where rote diplomacy crumbled. Localized neutrality secured, governors whispering of the soldier who negotiated like a seer. Back in the throne chamber, Elithra reviewed the feeds as alarms wailed. Saboteurs confirmed, Kael Voss's sigils on their gear, famine edging closer. The council bayed for blood. Raise his estates, purge the traitors. Elithra silenced them with a raised talon. No. Their act demands precision, not slaughter. She summoned Jonah's return feed. "Lieutenant, your units join our grain convoys. Your plans, deploy, now." Jonah's voice crackled steady. "Empress, pattern suggests more hits. Scatter decoy silos, use my team's endurance for night watches. We'll multitask scans and repairs. Hold the stores till harvest cycles turn." The council recoiled. A human directing Imperium forces? But Elithra endorsed it publicly. Her crest held high. "So ordered, the Alliance commands." Dawn broke over the capital sprawl, the public provisioning sortie a spectacle of necessity and theater. Elithra descended the Grand Ziggurat steps, flanked by her elite guard, their carapaces gleaming under harvest moons. At her gesture, Jonah stepped forward, his select unit merging seamlessly with the Sarkash ranks. "Lieutenant Hale commands this guard," she proclaimed to the thronged masses, voices rising in wary murmur. "Trust as I do, our shield shared." The crowds parted, a tide of scales and feathers, as the convoy rumbled forth. Towering grain haulers, drone swarms overhead. Jonah took point, his voice calm over comms, directing aliens and humans in tandem. Saboteur shadows stirred at the perimeter, bladed figures lunging from fog-shrouded vents. Jonah's team endured the fray's chaos, working longer shifts without falter, pattern recognizing ambush vectors aliens missed. "Flank left, your pheromones mask our advance," he called to a Sarkash sergeant, adapting on the fly. Claws met Terran precision. Saboteurs fell. Stores secured amid cheers. Elithra watched from the lead carrier, Propriety's formal shell cracking just enough for a rare warmth. This human, humble in victory, forged respect where contempt once reigned. His resilience, his quiet innovations, reshaped the field. Yet Kael's regency loomed, sanctions biting deeper. The return to the grand convocation was electric, holographic banners of Kael's claims still pulsing. Elithra ascended the dais alone, Jonah at her flank, the chamber packed with nobles whose pheromones churned doubt. "Lord Kael Voss," she thundered, voice regal thunder, "your regency bid is rebuked. Sabotage bears your mark. Conspirator, not savior." Gasps, Kael's crest deflated, faction fracturing. She raised a claw, edict materializing in golden script. "The human alliance stands, reaffirmed pending diplomatic review. Lieutenant Hale's feats, neutral borders, famine thwarted, prove its steel. Dissenters, face review tribunals. The Imperium endures united." Cheers clashed with boos, political cost immediate. Kael's allies slithered out, Vexari envoys no doubt gleeful. But Elithra held firm, Jonah's steady presence a anchor amid the storm. As the session dissolved, Jonah leaned close, voice low. "Sanctions tighten, Empress. Your cousin plots from shadows. But we've bought time together. She met his gaze. The first true fracture in formality yielding partnership spark. Shadows lingered, deeper factions stirred, but the Empire held its breath on newfound ground. Explosions rocked the palace spires, the thunder of orbital barrages shattering the chamber's fragile calm. Elithra's throne room buckled as holographic displays flickered to life unbidden, projecting the traitor fleet's advance. Her cousin Varak's regency banners emblazoned across dreadnoughts, external allies from the fractured rim worlds lending their guns. Alarms wailed in piercing Sarkesh tones, and guards surged forward, blades drawn, eyes wide with the shock of betrayal. "Empress!" Captain Lyra's voice cut through the din, her scaled face taut as she thrust a comm pad forward. "Regency forces have breached the outer docks. They're vectoring on the throne, aimed to take you alive, annul the alliance, and install Varak." Elithra rose, her iridescent robe settling like armored scales, pulse steady despite the chaos clawing at the edges of her resolve. The session's embers, Jonah's quiet warning, flared into prophecy. Shadows had stirred indeed. She seized the pad, scanning the fleet dispositions, Varak's flagship at the vanguard, jamming fields deploying to isolate her command net. "Evacuate the non-essentials," she commanded, voice a blade of imperial steel. "Seal the inner sanctum." Jonah. He was already moving, the human lieutenant uncoiling from his consort's dais with predatory grace, his Terran uniform unmarked by the panic rippling through her court. No wider eyes, no hesitation, just that calm, assessing gaze she'd come to rely on against her better judgment. "I've got their comm signature," he said, fingers flying over a jury-rigged wrist device, interfacing with her palace arrays faster than her tech adepts could boot their consoles. Varak's broadcasting on a looped Regency cipher, old, sloppy, patching through now. The chamber's main hololith stabilized under his touch, alien code yielding to human intuition like clay to a sculptor's hand. Elithra watched, a flicker of unwelcome awe stirring as fragmented traitor chatter spilled out, coordinates for the decapitation strike, orders to nullify the human contaminant. Jonah's lips thinned, multitasking, relaying intercepts to her loyal squadrons while plotting intercept vectors on a secondary pane. "Isolating their flagship," he murmured, voice level. "Your rim allies are holding the flanks. Reroute Keshvar wing to pinch them here." His finger stabbed a projection, linking her forces in a pincer aliens would have plotted for cycles. Lyra hesitated, mandibles clicking. "Human, you presume victory," Elithra snapped, silencing doubt. Jonah's pattern recognition wove through the storm where her officers faltered, connecting Varak's feints to rim fleet signatures she'd overlooked in the session's haze. Endurance gleamed in him too. No fatigue and no steady hands, no complaint as secondary blasts shook dust from the vaulted ceiling. She felt the court's eyes, whispers of the soft-skinned ape turning to grudging focus. But the palace shuddered again, closer now. Breaches in the evacuation corridors. "They're inside," a guard gasped, phaser fire echoing from the halls. Lyra drew her blade. "Evacuate the Empress." No. Elithra's decision crystallized, born of command's unyielding core. Fleeing would fracture her legitimacy. Varak's coup thrived on her absence. She turned to Jonah, the weight of alliance pressing like a crown's thorns. "We hold here. Coordinate the counter from the war nexus." His nod was immediate, no triumphal smirk. Just partnership, raw and unadorned. "I'll clear the path." They moved as one. Elithra's guards forming a wedge around them, Jonah at her flank, with a borrowed Sarkesh pulse rifle gripped like an old friend. Blasts scorched the air as Regency shock troops poured from a side passage. Varak's fanatics chanting annulment oaths. Jonah multitasked seamlessly, firing precise suppression bursts while barking overrides into his device, crippling the traitor's squadcom. "Allied squadrons, Empress's authority, engage flagship engines on my mark." A human's adaptability, turning her rigid protocols fluid. Elithra fired beside him, her shots surgical, downing a lunging assailant. Heat bloomed in her limbs, Sarkesh fatigue creeping after cycles of council strain. But Jonah pressed on, unflagging, reading the melee's subtext, feigned retreat luring them into a killbox. "Flank left." Patterns of Varak favorite, he called, voice threading emotional calm through her guards. They adapted to him, pack bonding in the breach, blades and rifles sinking under his improvised rhythm. The war nexus doors hissed open, a storm of data screens alive with the battle's fury. Jonah slid into the command throne, Elithra at his side, her presence anchoring the flickering loyalties. Enemy dreadnoughts clawed toward the palace orbit, but her squadrons, bolstered by his intercepts, swarmed Varrock's flagship like iridescent hornets. "Mark," Jonah said, and torpedoes lanced true, engines blooming fire. The trader van crippled, rim fleets wavering under counterfire, yet Varrock's voice pierced the net, oily with triumph. "Surrender the throne, cousin. The human taints our blood. Yield, and live." Elithra's mandibles flexed, rage tempered by strategy. Jonah's eyes met hers, a silent query. She accessed the imperial core, ancient codes pulsing under her scaled palm. "Lieutenant Hale," she intoned, formal words cracking with necessity's fire. "By sovereign decree, I authorize you full military relay in my name. Lead them to victory." The nexus hummed as authority flowed. Jonah, the human, vested with Sarkesh command. Her court feeds lit with shock, adepts gaping at hololiths, but his creativity surged. He wove alien squadrons with Terran precision, improvising a gravitational slingshot from the palace's defense sats, hurling debris into the rim flanks. Enemies scattered, Varrock's dreadnought listing, comms falling silent. Dawn broke over the spires as the last trader ships fled or burned. Elithra stood amid the Nexus's cooling hum, Jonah wiping sweat from his brow. Not exhaustion, merely human punctuation. Guards knelt, Lyra's gaze holding new weight, respect, earned in blood. The court reconvened at midday, holograms linking shattered fleets. Varrock's remnants sued for terms, but factions bade for exile, purges. Elithra raised a clawed hand, voice resonant. "No, we bind wounds with strength renewed." She turned to Jonah, the chamber hushing. "Lieutenant Jonah Hale, consort designate, has proven valor beyond precedent. I confer the Star of Keshvar and propose our lawful partnership. Consorts and co-regents, reshaping the Imperium as equals." Murmurs swelled. Shock, calculation. But Jonah stepped forward, humble incline of head. "Empress, I accept in service to our peace. No boast, just quiet capability, the human who turned coup to cornerstone." She pressed on, issuing the charter, reconciliatory governance, legitimizing the alliance, preserving houses while elevating shared rule. Factions grumbled, but victory's glow quelled revolt. The court ratified under her unyielding gaze. Public feeds broadcasting acceptance, imperial stability forged anew. As seals clicked final, Jonah leaned close once more, weariness touching his features for the first time. "We held, Elithra, together." She met his eyes, formality's shell yielding fully to alliance's core. As partners, as rulers. The empire exhaled, precedents altered, her throne no longer solitary. She was born to rule, and learned that true power is finding an